Hi, I'm Edwin Bodney. I'm beautiful. And today we're going to be close reading Some Nights, found in my book, A Study of Hands. The title is actually the first line of the poem. I made it the title also because I think it speaks to the sort of simplicity of the narrative. It's some nights I call a man over to fuck, and then we do. I wanted to introduce this very jarring tone. That first line, like I call and fuck, like that hard sort of K sound that's happening. You're up here, there's a sort of unnerving reaction, I guess, that happens, and then you sort of settle into it. And then we do, okay, a sort of exhale moment. Other nights, he will lie in my bed. And that other is very critical because I think that it illuminates the rarity. I use that word lie in two ways. It's just this sort of hookup, right? That's a routine kind of thing that's happening. I've now given you a clear light over it, saying that not only are they laying down in my bed, but they're also lying to me and themselves in the process. His body, a cavern of wet, grinning teeth. Mine, a canyon unwound. This is like what my usual sort of experience is when I take it all in of like what this other man is in this space, right? There's a purposeful spacing between the words wet and grinning. I wanted there to be both of these just working together, but not necessarily joined at the hip, where you just sort of run through the words. I have you take a breath there to take those two images in separately. Transposing like the sexual onto natural images like this really illuminates that it is a natural thing happening. So like sex is a very natural thing, and so I'm confronting it that way and allowing my reader to feel more at ease with that. Observing everything I can see with the lights off. We talked about sort of dismantling the lie, and now we're sort of confronting a higher truth here. And I'm so close to myself in this moment. I'm looking through the person as opposed to just looking at the person. In my smallest voice, I tell him to leave before he has traveled me. I talk about this very, very like honest, vulnerable voice, the one that I would say for something more intimate than just this random sexual act. I'm now taking my power back by utilizing the most vulnerable aspect of myself. Being somebody who is unapologetic about changing their mind and about their own agency and about understanding that I've decided to do something different now, where before I might have just allowed this to happen in the ways that it does. Of course, he is a confused but silent child wandering into the dark, asking me to find him again. You sort of break a fourth wall down with that start of course. I've engaged the reader. I've placed them in a setting where I may be talking to them face to face. And so I'm just like, well, of course, like, you know, like you're probably thinking the same thing, but here is what that means now. I've spoken for them because again, I've not given this person an identity. I've only described them as a man. So they have no name. There's already no specific power to them other than their physical presence. I've reduced him to just his confusion. So a child already having limited information or limited knowledge with how they navigate the world, and then also not even having the world be lit up. That's what I can witness in that moment that happens where everything sort of dims and then they become this sort of childlike presence that doesn't really know now. They're sort of stumbling and wandering about with no sort of clear direction now that I've taken that from them. That's been the point, is just to prioritize myself and my own aloneness, and reduce them to just the wilderness, really, just to wandering out into the dark and not being worried about what they're doing because I'm not responsible for that. I lock the door behind him, stretch myself down, and masturbate to vintage porn. This poem shows up now in about 3/4 of the way through the book. In so many other contexts of the book, you have seen me choose something outside of myself. Me locking the doors, me sealing that experience away, that sort of past version of myself away. For the sake of not wanting to repeat myself with the imagery that I use, I don't use the word lie again because I could have just said like I lie down in bed. I say stretch myself down to signify those images that I said earlier, but also to understand there's a difference now in that kind of intimacy and an honesty that's present. And the thought of a past lover with one of his past lovers. This jarring image of just like masturbating, and then we talk about vintage porn, and there's this idea of nostalgia. I made that a very clear image for myself because that's just how I navigate the world. I navigate from a very sort of nostalgic romance. I removed all shame, and I've grown so close to myself in this moment that I'm taking absolute power in this, absolute sexual agency in this. If that's what's getting my rocks off, then so be it. Rocks off like Canyon. Again, these natural images. I ask myself, is this not what it means to be in love with me? To release shame and to grab tight completely of my own agency and prioritize myself, and isolating myself in a way that allows me to love myself more. Is that what this all means? I leave not only the reader with that question, but I leave myself with that question of just like, what does it look like to be more in love with myself? When it comes to like the form of the poem and it being in free verse, again, I am prioritizing narrative over choosing to utilize a different kind of form to write the piece in. I like to make very specific incisions. The spacing that I've taken between stanzas and the breaking of each line is just to allow very, very precise language to take hold of the story. There's a clear beginning, a clear middle, and a clear ending. Again, the resolution is getting to the question that I end with about just loving self, whatever that means. What is exploration if not to be questioning? Everything doesn't have to have a clear, pristine answer. I think that negates the humanness of